What's good, YouTube? It's Remember back in this video. A couple of days ago, this card was spoiled for the next V-Jump promo that's releasing out in the OCG. V-Jump is a magazine that gives out promo cards every now and then, and apparently they're getting a retrade of Monster Reborn? What? This card is literally a artwork of Dark Magician alongside a Monster Reborn being flipped face up on the table, and apparently it's based off of the manga artwork during the duel where Yugi actually dueled Arcana, the battle of the Dark Magicians, obviously, Dark Magician versus Dark Magician, and at some point, I guess Yugi flipped Monster Reborn. I can't remember, this was like a million years ago when I first watched that anime scene and read the manga, but now we're getting it in the flesh, and they did not spoil the effect at first. They just gave us the artwork like they always do to kind of generate some hype about it, but now the artwork and the effect have fully been revealed, and apparently this card is insane. Like, guys, look at this. So yes, we are looking at the elusive V-Jump Monster Reborn, or should I say spell card, Monster Reborn, which is a really weird name. I'm sure there are some better names, hopefully when they localize it here in the TCG after like a year or two when it's finally imported. But anyways, besides the point, the first thing that you have to notice about this card is the fact that it's a quick play spell card. Guys, quick play spell cards are the best spell cards in the entire game. You already know we have broken quick play spell cards like Super Polymerization, Enemy Controller, everything is broken. Cosmic Cyclone, all of these powerful board breaker cards are quick plays because these are the type of cards that can be activated at any interval during the duel, right? Provided you have it in your hand during your turn, or you set it to activate on your opponent's turn where it becomes a trap card. It's like, you know, Forbidden Droplet, there's so many good cards that are just quick play spell cards, and that's the first thing I noticed is, wow, quick play spell card. Okay, we have some promise here. This card is a hard once per turn that says target one monster in either player's graveyard, special summon it to your field, but it cannot attack or activate its effects this turn. So, okay, at first glance when I read this card, I was like, yeah, you know what? I agree with everyone. It's kind of meh. You know, Monster Reborn is not really played. Everyone's like, yeah, Monster Reborn is bad nowadays. We don't want to play it. It's a normal spell card. You can't really do anything besides search it off Thrust, and it's still bad. But then you have to remember, this is a quick play spell card, and that's where things get interesting, and all of a sudden you're like, huh, you know, I could use this at any point to special summon something back from either player's graveyard. Okay, there's some promise there, but people were still saying, oh, this is bad, it's not good enough for today's metagame. But you have to read between the lines, because, okay, at surface value, yes, this resurrects a monster. Unfortunately, it does impose a restriction where the monster cannot attack or activate its effects, but you still get a monster that you can either use to link climb, which is very easy, or you could use it to synchro summon. Obviously, link climbing is very easy because if you target a link monster that's a link 2 or higher, you're getting free link value out of that by using it for a link climb into something a lot more stronger, right? Like a link 3, link 4, but then the restriction, one thing I immediately noticed after reading this a couple of times is it says you cannot activate its effects or attack with it this turn. And there's no other restriction on this card. There's no restriction that says you have to banish the monster until the end phase. You know, there's no restriction that says you have to send it back to the graveyard during the end phase. And then I realized, you know what? This actually does not prevent the monster from activating its effects during the next turn or attacking during the next turn. So if I set this during my turn, during my opponent's turn, I flip it up in the end phase, I bring back a Baron de Fleur, I can now use the Omni Negate effect during my turn, as well as attack with it during my turn, which is nuts, right? I can like spawn out a Miniature Beast from my graveyard during the end phase, and then it comes back out, and it's just amazing. So that's one thing that I realized immediately with this card. I'm like, wow, this card has application. Then I went a little bit further and realized, guys, this card does so much more than just bring back a monster for you to use. It can be used as disruption because it's a quick play spell card, right? Like, we have cards that target cards in the graveyard. We have cards like Called by the Grave. Let's say I drop an Ash Blossom, my opponent has Called by, and I'm like, wait, I have response to your Called by. Spell card Monster Reborn that Ash. So your target for the Called by is gone, meaning it does not resolve with an effect. So now, we are now resolving my Ash Blossom. We protected my Ash from your Called by. Same type of deal with the Bystials. If your opponent has a Bystial, Druid Swarm, Magma, they're trying to banish something, to special summon it out as a Dragon Extender, we can immediately use the effect of Spell Card Monster Reborn to banish, well, special summon that target so they cannot banish, and then the Magma does not come out. Like, the Dragon Extender stays in their hand. And then I went even further beyond and realized, guys, we already have a card like this that exists in current metagame called Rescue, which is in the Rescue Ace, right? It's a quick play spell card that can resurrect any card from either player's graveyard while they control Hydrant And this card does not require you to have Hydrant, meaning we can do the exact same thing. If our opponent activates a Tearlaments monster in the graveyard, effective fuse, we can chain spell card Monster Reborn, bring back the Tearlaments monster. Guess what? It's not resolving with any effect because it's gone from the graveyard, so you're not fusing with it. Just like Rescue Age players do, we can do the same thing with spell card Monster Reborn. And there's so much application to this when you realize you can actually resurrect a monster and then have the effect live during the next turn. I can attack with it during the next turn. I can use this as a body to link climb or synchro climb. If I reborn like a tuner, I can synchro quite easily. And then on top of that, I can use it as disruption to get something out of my opponent's graveyard if they needed to banish it, or if they needed it in the graveyard to use the effect and resolve it. I can use it as disruption for things like Called by the Grave, so I can protection. I can use it as protection against Called by the Grave, against Magnema, the Bystials. And then also, it only prevents you from activating the effects. It does not negate the effects. This is a lot better. There's a distinction between you cannot activate its effects this turn versus negate its effects this turn, right? This means that continuous effects that not activate, are immediately live, okay? So, if I have like a Fossil Dyna or a Barrier Statue in my graveyard, I can chain spell card Monster Reborn to the effect that was special summon, bring back my Fossil Dyna, and then you cannot special summon, so that chain resolves without effect if you're trying to Monster Reborn something, right? So it's kind of ironic how you can counter spell cards that resurrect anything from the graveyard if you have like a Fossil Dyna or a 5 statue, or if you have something like a Baguska, I can bring back the Baguska, he's live, he tilts everything to defense mode, negates your effects. Continuous effects do have some application on the field, so this card actually allows you to do that and take advantage of that. Even stuff like Typhon, like potentially my opponent has like a 3k monster effect that has an ignition effect. I can use the effect of this to resurrect my Typhon that was previously in the graveyard, and then that prevents you from using the effect during that turn because it's a continuous effect, right? So this card actually has a lot of application, and I think a lot of people are actually downplaying it on the online scene. I actually happen to think this card is extremely good and could potentially rival a side deck card on the likes of Enemy Controller or Cosmic Cyclone potentially if we have a heavy graveyard-based metagame when this does get imported to the CCG. Unfortunately, this will take some time. I imagine over a year because it does take a long time for us to actually get the V-Jump promos for some reason. I think there's some kind of like agreement with Shueisha or V-Jump where we actually cannot get the imports until the CCG has had them for some period of time. But guys, what do you think about this card? Is this card, am I just overhyping this card, or is it actually good? What do you guys think? Please let me know in the comments below. Also, is there any other application that we can use for this card to be good? Like, is there anything else that I'm not thinking of? Any other combos that we can use? Any way to make this searchable even? I mean, it'd be good in a deck like Sky Strikers that wants to get spell cards in the graveyard as well. Let me know in the comments below. Thanks a lot for tuning in for this video. I'm really excited about this card. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye-bye.